Hello, hello. Welcome to Hakuna MaChatter. You are here live with us this evening. We are here with your weekend watch list. I'm very excited about this addition to your weekend watch list. I have an incredible guest. We've got an incredible crop of films and TV shows to talk with you guys today, this evening. And we have an amazing topic talking about the representation of people with disabilities in film and TV. But before we get into all of that, let me introduce my guest to you. Coming on is Josh, a personal friend of mine. Hello, Josh. How you doing, man?
Yo, what's up? How are you, Elliot?
I'm good. Very excited to have you here today. The beard is looking sensational.
Well, I grew it just for the show, and I'm gonna be shaving it as soon as I'm done. No, I'm in the
Brilliant.
quarantine, that phase in quarantine where the beard is just getting very long, and I have a hat on so you don't see just how long my hair is. But yeah, no, I'm excited that the beard and I am on the show. I'm a fan of the show, obviously, and hope to do it justice. And I was very excited when you said I didn't have to talk about Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Which, of course, is your number one favorite film of all time.
Of all time, and that's why I couldn't talk about it. You're just like, you can't talk about it anymore. You can't.
No, I know. We have
Stop
to.
praising it.
Exactly.
There are more films than
Exactly.
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
There's a new Spider-Man since then now. Come on, get with the times.
What? No.
Exactly. So we have a whole host of things that we're going to talk about today. And we'll dive into them like kind of near enough straight away. But before we do, I just want to say hello to the people that are watching live. If you are live, if you are in the chat, please let us know. Drop us a hello. Drop us a how you doing. We'd love to talk to you as much as we're going to talk to each other. So make sure you are live in the chat. And if you're watching this on playback, drop a comment down below as well. Let us know about the films that we're talking about. Let us know about the representation of people with disabilities as well, and how you think that is going, how you think it needs to be improved. Is it good? Is it not good? But we're going to dive into that as the show goes on. So, Josh, let us start then with the first film.
Minari.
Minari. Yeah, sorry, I slightly froze on my screen. So I'm hoping I'm still there.
There we are.
We're back. You still see me? Good. All right. Well, let's talk about our first film then, and that is Minari. So Minari, which was in Sundance last year, 2020, directed and written by Lee Isaac Chung, starring Stephen Yeun, let me bring my notebook closer to me. That always helps. Yeri Han, Alan Kim, Noel Cho, and Yu Jung Yuan. Now, this was one of the films you wanted to bring to the live stream today. So why is Minari the first film for your weekend watch list?
Absolutely. Yeah, so Minari just because of this sort of weird schedule that they have with the Oscars, sort of came out for a week in the last sort of few weeks of 2020 on virtual, and then has now been released theatrically in the US in last week or 2 weeks ago, and is coming out in the UK soon. It's one of my favorite films of last year. I think a number of reasons why I love the film. I think first, and there's been a lot made about the fact that this was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the Golden Globes. Of course, it's at the Oscars Best International Film, but of course, this film was shot. Lee Isaac Chung is American himself. He was born in Colorado. It was financed by Americans. And I think the film is one of the most sort of American films I've seen in quite some time in terms of the way it really talks about the American dream, and also the way it's also functions sort of as a critique of Reagan and sort of the aspirations that Ronald Reagan was sort of promoting, which I have my own opinions about Ronald Reagan and how much I fucking hate him. But I think I think it functions as that. But I also think besides it being a beautiful film and just a really extraordinarily well-directed film, as someone who went to school in near the Ozarks, I wasn't quite in the Ozarks, but I went to University of Missouri, which is where the film is set. Of course, the film, this family moves from California to Arkansas in the 80s to sort of start a farm. and this family immigrated from the husband and wife immigrated from Korea to South Korea to America or to California, and then had a family in California.
Yeah, yeah.
And we rarely see. And it's not just Asians, but whenever these films are depicting sort of the heartlands of America or the American South or these sort of
Mm,
small town America, it's mostly populated with like white people. And
yeah.
in my experience, at University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, there was a very large like Chinese population there. There was a very large
Mm,
Latinx population there. There was a large there was actually a pretty large Muslim population and also Indian population as well. And these towns and cities are actually very diverse, but no one ever wants to represent that on screen. And I think
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
film really does represent that and represent how diverse these towns and cities are. And I think that's like
Mm,
I remember being at Sundance this year, and then there was a filmmaker who was making a film about I think people who were from the Philippines, but living in I believe it was Austin or El Paso or something, some town in
mm,
Texas that and he was talking about how rarely do we see you know a lot of times it's sort of relegated to the coastal cities, San Francisco, New York, LA, and
yeah.
yet the heartlands are populated by very diverse sort of communities. And
Yeah.
um so yeah, I mean, just on that topical level, I thought it was really great to talk about. But I also thought the film reminded me a lot of Terrence Malick, who I the films of his I really love,
Mm,
in the way it sort of talks about the family. It's also very lyrical in its sort of composition, but it also sort of reminded me of Spielberg too. In that, to me, Spielberg's films, and I love Spielberg. He's always telling films about the family or families, but then sticking an alien in them at the last second. And
yeah.
I feel like this is sort of like that, but without the sort of alien element.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also before I sort of I also really quick. I mean, Stephen Yeun is getting a lot of buzz, and I think rightly so. I think he deserves an Oscar
Mm.
nomination. I think he's remarkable in this film. But I really think Alan S. Kim as David gives maybe one of the best, if not the best, child performance I've seen in quite some time.
I mean, absolutely, hands down. The kid, he absolutely runs away with it for me. It was interesting because, I've heard about all the buzz around Stephen Yeun around this film. And then when I was watching it last night, I was like, but it's more about the kid, really,
Hmm.
and about his relationship with his grandma, which I thought was really fascinating. And, when I sort of look at it from when I put my sort of background and experience into it with, I'm what, second generation of an immigrant family. So, I kind of really related with the kid. Also, the fact that we both have heart conditions as well. So I was like, well, this is kind of extremely surreal right now. But it just kind of shows, like, what it really challenges the idea of what a typical American looks like, because and it does it in a way that's not that it's not the film is not about that. It's not about them trying to find their place as an American. They've kind of already done that. They're now sort of just trying to find their place in the country that they live and where they've been living for over a decade. And then when the grandma comes in, and you kind of see it in David and a little bit in his sister as well, in Anne, and that they're American children. They are
Hmm.
American children through and through. They speak English with American accents. They drink Mountain Dew, and it's just kind of refreshing to see that they are American kids. It just so happens that their family have immigrated from a different country. Yeah, and I'm if there was a child category, I think Alan Kim would be running away with that.
Absolutely. I mean, but like, look, if there are any Oscar voters who are like watching this stream by any chance, like, please, like, look at the performance and look at it closely, because I think it is in many ways, and I'm not taking anything away from Stephen Yeun or like Yuri Han or
Hmm.
Yu Jung Yoon, who's like a legendary Korean actress.
Yeah.
As well. Like, I'm not taking anything away from those performances. but I think this is really an incredible performance. And I also want to pick up on something you were talking about. I think one of the refreshing things about the film is that their conflicts, their struggles aren't just, dealing with racism or dealing with the
No.
fact that they're Asians, they're Korean in Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's dealing with things like is our marriage going to last? Can we
Yeah.
sustain this farm? Is my son, is David gonna, who's the Chung stand-in basically, from my understanding,
Mm.
is he gonna
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
is his heart gonna be okay? And
Mm.
yeah, there is a scene where they've sort of gone to church, and I think there's a character who asks the daughter to speak in her native language, which is it's a
Yeah.
funny scene, and it is drawing on that, but also, I mean, that scene is not repeated throughout the movie, and
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's because the film doesn't base itself around that when that moment happens, and with the kid that David interacts with as well, you don't mind it that much because the film, yeah, as you say, is not based on that.
hmm yeah, no, and I think it's really it's about seeing David make friends with people in the city, the town. It's about sort of the burgeoning friendship that Stephen Ewan's character has with the character sort of played by Will Patton.
Mm.
It's about their marriage. It's about all these things, and like their struggles in fitting in are just more to do with like the struggles of like any new family
Yeah.
moving to a new
Yeah.
town. And I don't know about you too. I think watching these sort of movies, seeing sort of these sort of big things through, and I don't know if you feel this way, through a kid's eye is can be so
Mm.
magical, and sort of like acts. I'm thinking of like something like In America, like the Jim Sheridan film, where it acts as sort of a safety net when you're dealing with sort of these more traumatic issues. I don't know if you felt that way while watching the film.
Yes, I see where you're coming from. Yeah, I know. I think you're right in that because as you say, like this kid is having to listen and try and understand about, I mean, his heart condition. We see the scene with the kids. The parents are arguing and how the kids deal with that as well. And you're right. Like particularly in that, that's an argument that could kind of get out of hand, but instead, the interjection comes from the kids just lightfully throwing the paper airplanes in.
Paper
So
airplanes.
you're right. It does. It from what could be a heated, maybe in some cases a potentially violent situation, becomes just a completely innocent straight away and loving as well, which was it's quite an achievement. And I think as we say that David is that stand-in for Lee Isaac Chung, and I think it's the film is based off of what he experienced, and you can kind of feel that he is that he has approached it of, well, this is how I remember it as a child, and so that's how it's going to go in this film. Yeah, no, it works very well.
Yeah, you're so right about that. In terms of it feels like Lee Isaac Chung is really allowing us to sort of view his memories through, obviously through a
Yeah.
work of fiction, but and that's why I love like movies, like something like Roma by Cuarón, or
Mm.
again, sort of those sort of Tree of Life, the Terrence Malick films, is that they feel very much like someone looking back at their memories and like allowing us to sort of see them on screen. And I think there's something like really powerful about that, and like really um, moving and satisfying cinematically when you see that, and it's done well. And I think even sort of, they say this in like screenwriting classes, the more personal you make something, a lot of times the more universal it becomes. And
Yeah.
I think really
Interesting.
in this, it's very universal. Like I could very much relate to some of the struggles that the David character is going through, just as like a boy growing up in like a family. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think um and I did also want to highlight, like, my favorite scene of the film is actually near the end. And I won't sort of give context away, but I will just say it takes place in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of other films would have chose to have a finite ending on what the outcome of that discussion was, and it's between
Mm.
Stephen Yoon and Yuri Han. And what I love about the film is, in general, is just how open ended they allow a lot of this stuff to be. Um,
Yeah.
it's not. It doesn't feel like we're reaching a big conclusion. It feels like you're watching something that may continue. It may not continue. But I think that's sort of very important. And I think it's a quality I admire in film and in films. And I don't know. Do you think you would agree that's kind of ridiculous that this got ghettoized into the at the Golden Globes? And not that we take the Golden Globes seriously, but
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot we can say about this year's Golden Globe nominations, really.
Yeah.
There was a picture that was going around on Twitter that I think was showing the nominations for all the actress categories and just how overwhelmingly white that was.
Yeah.
And and I don't think did either of the two main female roles here get nominated?
They did not. There was no, outside of the foreign language category, I don't think it got a screenplay or anything.
It's a shocker. I'm not going to lie.
It's shocking. Yeah, it's very, very unfortunate, I think. But yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah.
And when does it come out in the UK? It's out here in a virtual run.
So I did look that up yesterday, but it's gone off the top of my head. Let me just quickly. Minari UK release. So it's currently scheduled for the 19th of March here in the UK. That is to go into cinemas. Obviously, that's very pandemic warranted. So we'll see. I don't know if there's any deal struck up to get it onto streaming as of yet. I can't imagine that there are. So hopefully, fingers crossed, guys, in the UK, we will get that into cinemas at the end of March, though.
Worth risking your life to go to the cinema to see that. I'm just kidding.
Yes, please don't take that literal advice.
Don't take that literal advice. No, but yeah. And also, I just wanted to compliment. I really loved Rose's discussion. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned at the top of Nomadland in the last show, and that's my favorite film of last year. And thought it was really. There's a lot that Rosa talked about that. I'm really looking forward to seeing it again because there was a lot that was brought up that,
yeah. No, it definitely, it was a film I was already going to try and catch, but the way Rosa spoke about it, I'm just like, it's just got to be seen. It's kind of the problem we have here in the UK at the moment is that, all the films are sort of being held for distribution because they still want to get out into cinemas and to theaters, and it means also that we still don't have Nomadland, we still don't have Promising Young Woman, we still don't have Sound of Metal, we still don't have Judas and the Black Messiah. We got a whole load of great films that are running round the US, and we're still having to wait a bit, but shouldn't be far off.
Shouldn't be far off, and if you want to see it, get a podcast like yourself and get a screener and be a big film industry person like yourself.
We're massive now.
Massive mates.
Cool. Brilliant. So I'm just going to go to the chat. We have 5 people live watching. Okay. Hi, thank you very much for joining us here
I'm on Hakuna MaChatter, by the way.
No. Well, hopefully these 5 people will drop a comment in. Let us know what you thought about Minari, or let us know what you think about the next topic we're going to talk about. And I'm just going to bring that up now. And it is the TV show I May Destroy You. So this is coming next on the list for your weekend watch list. And for both Josh and I, this is something we missed last year, but we've caught up on specifically for the show. Have you finished now?
I have. I finished last night.
Great. Let me just take a sip of tea. So this was my pick to bring into today's live stream. And I just thought this show was incredible because of the conversations it's bringing up, because we obviously in film and TV do not see enough of these conversations. I think even just in general as well, really, just from the victim's point of view about what has happened to them. And, Michaela Cole, who created and wrote and stars as the lead in this, is also doing something incredible in the fact that she's basing it off of events that she went through as well. And I think that is a particularly stunning move to do, to be able to have the that sense of self, that she can come out and she can, you know, tell the story how she wants it to be told. And I think what's kind of also important as well is that, you know, she has that position in which she can tell this story in the way that other people won't. You know, other people won't. We always know that it's so hard for shows that are run by, or sorry, led by, or directed or written by people from a minoritized race, maybe women, people with disabilities, as we'll discuss later, etc., etc. And so when you have that intersectionality here with Michaela Cole and being both Black and a woman, we know that how Black women are so much more affected in this society, in Western society. And so, you know, the fact that she was able to get that space to create this herself and tell her story, and not just telling her story, telling the story of other people, I think that's what sets this show aside from anything we would have seen before. What were your initial thoughts on it?
I mean, yeah, it's I was blown away by it. I think it's the best sort of TV show I've seen in quite some time, and I'm also horrible with sort of following TV. So like, you know, like
Yeah,
I sort of I had, you know, it had been on the back burner for me because of that, and I think you know, personal sort of experiences aside, and why I sort of related to it. I just think, you know, from I think from, you know, a representation place, I think having a show that has a majority of the leads are, you know, people of color, are, you know, people who are Black, and people who also like, there's trans characters in the film, I believe played by a trans actor.
I didn't actually get a chance to look that up, but yeah, I'm hoping that was.
I mean,
the case.
I would assume, based on sort of like the sensitivity that Michaela Cole has, that they would have cast it that way. But just seeing that, and also seeing, I think the thing that I really responded to in this is the way the show really does relish might be the wrong word, allows us to sort of rest in sort of the murky waters of some of these very complex issues, or like, are very complicated issues in terms of, especially dealing with you know, the subjects that she deals with on the show, you know, like you know, consent, like assault, and really, I really like the scene that sort of sticks out to me now is there's a scene later on in the show where one of her friends, basically, who mostly identifies as gay, goes on a date with a straight woman, and you really think that scene is going in one direction, and then it goes in a completely different direction. And actually, the anger that the sort of woman has at the end of that encounter is completely and totally justified. And she's not in another show, that woman would have been made out to have been sort of a villain or someone who was, you know, a bad person. But I think the complexity in this is just, it's like nothing I've ever seen on TV.
Definitely.
You know.
Yeah, and I distinctly remember that scene as well, and I think I had the same reaction to you as well. It was something like, oh, yeah, that's actually a really good point that she's making here. And, you know, she's not been perfect herself. I think that's also what's really great about the show, is that, you know, even though we're following sort of three characters really, in a way, in following Arabella and Terry and Kwame, that actually, you know, even them and themselves at times aren't perfect, you know. And I think that is what, you know, allows us to have these fully rounded characters. And you say how it's a show that, you know, brilliantly is led completely, well, I say completely, you know, predominantly by a Black cast. You know, it's easy in these situations to, or maybe it's easy in these situations to make sure that they're perfectly good and they can't do anything wrong. And especially, you know, as Arabella from the first episode falls victim to something that she shouldn't have to. But then sort of as we get halfway through the show, she sort of loses, you know, that connection with her friends and stuff because of what's happened to her. She kind of, in the end, sort of like doubles the other way. And I think that's really interesting that it shows to the places that something like that can take someone, and how she sort of brings herself back from that as well. And then I think what was also great as well is that both the opening episode and the final episode, and how we never truly find out what happened. We never truly understand what happened. And I wonder it makes me wonder for how many people that go through something like that, how that is the case, that they never get the answers, and they just kind of have to live on with that. So for me, I thought that was really stunning as well.
I completely agree. I think that it feels very accurate, and I think also just the way that these characters respond after this happens, and also the fact that it can take, like in the case of Terry's the thing that happens to Terry in Italy, it can take like months for you to realize that this happened. Or in the case of in the way Arabella responds when she first sort of realizes that she's been raped, or was possibly raped. It just feels so accurate. And I also just think too, it's not just those scenes that feel authentic. The scenes where Arabella is hanging out with her roommate feel complete. Like we realize we rarely see actual like roommates just hanging out together on screen. Like that feels so real to me. And I think the way what happens with Theodora, the complexities of that, and Arabella's sort of complicity in some of that. I think it's really just it's always great to see a show that is not only this well handled, but also is was created by someone who is like us, actors, performers, and had this idea, going, and had this idea and came up with this idea and was really the sort of the creative force behind this idea. I think is really like exciting to see and empowering. I don't know if you felt like empowered watching this show, but like it's just like all you need are these, a really great script, but also like actors, talented actors, and a camera, and like you can create something really sensational and amazing. And I think this is sort of the product of that sort of attitude in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's also that something that's just so simple as well, really, in what it's doing. It knows what its theme is, it knows what its motif is, it knows what its through line is, and it just kind of follows that stream as well. And Michaela Cole was interviewed by Reggie Yates. I've not had a chance to watch the full interview yet, but I saw a clip on Instagram, I think just shortly after I'd finished the final episode, and Reggie Yates was saying, he just sort of said, look, thank you, Michaela, because you have finally made something that shows the London I know and I grew up with and I understand. And I just kind of think, how many other people are there and maybe not even just in London, but around the world, that have gone, look, that's a story I know, that's a story I recognize, and finally someone has stepped forward and has made that story. And as you said with Minari, it's Michaela Cole. She's written about a personal story, but it suddenly becomes so universal. And I think that really, really fits in here.
Yeah, and I think also too, just the importance of, like you said, when you're thinking of sort of this as well, like we are getting to see the London we know, right? Because I've always said, as much as I enjoy Sherlock, I've said, having lived in London for a few years, it doesn't really, not only the way where they shoot it, in sort of just central London, but like West End, but also just the way the show is made up. It, as much as I love the show, it doesn't feel like a realistic representation of London to me. Now I said, like, actually Luther was a show that felt more accurate, just location wise, and also like how diverse that cast is. But it's really great to see a show that represents that, but is also not just like casting, characters who are black as just like gangsters or it's just allowing them to exist as like real people, as like, people who work in finance, as an author, as an actress. Terry is as concerned of booking that job, as she is with like any sort of representation issues, or any issues that deal with sort of race. And I think it's really sort of remarkable, and it's a remarkable achievement.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. All right, let's move on then to one of our main discussion points of today, and that is on the representation of people with disabilities in film and TV. So as we kind of work here with your weekend watch list on Hakuna MaChatter, I asked the guest what they would like to talk about in terms of diversity and representation. And Josh, your choice was to talk about this. So why is this important to you? What is your background with this that meant you wanted to talk about this today?
I think for several reasons. First of all, I'm someone who has a learning disability. I had that in school. I have ADHD and also nonverbal learning disability. I also spent a year in college working with kids on the autism spectrum, on the autism, Asperger's spectrum. And so I'm very familiar with some of, I guess, the struggles that some of these kids go through, but also some like the amazing things that these kids achieve as well. And I think we're at a real turning point right now. Do you know how many performers have been nominated for portraying characters with disabilities who are not all of them able-bodied, but I would say most of them?
Yeah, no, go on, tell me.
59. This is according to
59.
an Ann Thompson article. Now, this is not perfect science, because there's Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter's on this list. Right. Would you want a real life Hannibal Lecter portraying that role? I mean, I love Anthony Hopkins' performance in the film.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So no. It's not a perfect science, but you also see, an egregious thing like I Am Sam, Sean Penn and I Am Sam playing a character with mental disability, and really just doing it to get an Oscar, and it's offensive and egregious, and I hate that film. And even
this was something we spoke about, wasn't it? The other day in our lead up for this live chat was that sort of that idea of Oscar baiting through these performances.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I think it's been the easiest way for a lot of people to win Oscars, but I think we're now seeing a trend in the right direction. And I think what I mean is, so in 2019, we had a film called The Peanut Butter Falcon, which came out, which saw this wonderful actor, Zach Gottsagen, in his sort of first performance. And the directors had sort of discovered this actor through, I think, a workshop or a camp for disabled actors, and had fallen in love with the actor, and rightly so, because I think he's just so charismatic and charming, and also mysterious, and just a brilliant performer. And they wrote this role for him, wrote the story for him. It's kind of a modern day Huck Finn, and then got the money, through getting people like Shia LaBeouf, Dakota Johnson, John Hawkes on board, and made a film. And I think, you see a character that is fully rounded, that is not just defined by the fact that he has Down syndrome, but by the fact that, this guy wants to be a wrestler, that he's sort of scheming, that he's a bit unpredictable, that, he's mysterious. And it's really just a fantastic performance, and made so much better by the fact that this is authentic, and it feels authentic.
Yeah, definitely.
And you saw the film, you loved it as well.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and I think what I loved most about it was this, and that I think it could have really lost itself in becoming a film where Shia LaBeouf's character was only introduced in order to save Zach's character, and that could have. I think there was a point I was like, is the film going to run that risk? But actually, as it develops, they save each other really, as much as one is saving the other. It's very equal. We learn that the Shia LaBeouf character lost a brother, and then Zach kind of comes in and shows Shia's character that family is what you choose and what you make of it. And I think that was really important, I think, to see, and that it wasn't just about helping the guy with Down syndrome. No, it was actually the guy with Down syndrome can help you as well and can save you too. And I think that was for me the standout message of this film.
Yeah, absolutely. And he can just exist in the world that the film is creating as
Yeah,
someone who wants to be a wrestler and has like qualities of, again, like being mysterious, very charismatic,
yeah,
um, yeah. And, but also I think, this past year, we've gotten films like Sound of Metal, which have featured,
yeah,
a supporting cast of deaf actors, um, and also features Paul Raci, who is the child of deaf adults, who's getting, Oscar buzz for his performance, as well as Riz Ahmed's getting Oscar buzz as well. And
yeah,
Raci had to fight for that role, and the casting director didn't want to see him, and he had to, his agent basically had to be like, no, this guy, he knows sign language. His parents were deaf, and he is playing a deaf character. But my understanding from the film is that, having seen the film, is that the character is sort of he became he became deaf, later in life, and also through sort of like, various, he had a lot of history with drugs, the character, and it
yeah,
basically fits Racy's life in a lot of ways. And, seeing someone like that on film, as well as seeing a supporting cast of
yeah,
mostly of deaf actors portraying, it just leads a lot of authenticity to the film. And again, there was questions: should Riz Ahmed be playing a character who's deaf? I thought it was kind of okay, and I know there are people who will disagree because he sort of doesn't start the film as being deaf.
yeah,
He's really sort of transitioning to being, basically losing his hearing during the film. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, Racy's incredible. Riz Ahmed's incredible in the film, but Racy in particular. And it's really great to see that. And as well, we saw Run, which
yes,
which came out at the end of last year, and is from the director of the movie Searching, which was set on a computer screen, and features Kira Allen playing a character who is in a wheelchair, and she herself, Kira Allen, uses a wheelchair. And my understanding is that when they sent the breakdown for this role, um, they um, they got a lot of. They specified, we want people who we want, actors who, we don't want any able-bodied actors to apply for this. We want actors who actually
yeah,
have to use a wheelchair in real life. And they got
yeah,
able-bodied actors pretending to use a wheelchair who came in for the part, which is shameless and
yeah, yeah,
speaks to a lot of problems that we have today in terms of representation, and also, uh,
yeah,
it speaks to a lot of problems. But I mean, Kira Allen, she's great in the film, and it really lends, I think, especially for a film that's a genre film, it lends a lot of authenticity seeing someone who's in a wheelchair actually, going through especially the end of the film, going through sort of the paces at the end of the film, knowing that that's sort of authentically portrayed, and also seeing the fact that, like, that person was empowered in the way she was during the production,
yeah,
it's really great. And also Coda, of course, won the Sundance Grand Jury Prize. Will be out next year. Most of the supporting cast of that film is comprised of deaf actors, including Marley Maitland, who was one of the few actors on the list who actually won an Oscar for playing a deaf character, and she is deaf herself. Um, Unfortunately, what also comes out this week is Music by Sia. Now, have you heard of sort
yes.
of the controversy surrounding this?
Yes, well, you let me know yourself, which is yeah. I've heard some from you. I've heard about different controversy about this film from others. Yes, it's yeah. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah. So again, I'm coming at this also from personal experiences, which is why I'm so outraged by it. And I also have to say, I like Sia's music. I think she's a really good artist, and I wanted her to make a really good directorial debut. But unfortunately, the movie, which got criticized as soon as the trailer was released, features Maddie Ziegler, who is a dancer, and is not autistic and not on the spectrum as a mute teenager girl who we at least presume is somewhere on the spectrum, likely suffers from or likely has Asperger's. And I think the performance, and I don't blame the actor, it comes down to direction. It's utterly insulting, and I think, and again, I want to be clear, you can't blame Ziegler for this. You have to blame who's directing her.
Yeah.
It's offensive to watch as someone who worked with kids on the spectrum. It's not, and we've heard a lot of, autistic film critics who have reviewed the film and people who have spoken out against it, a lot of sort of organizations that work with autistic people who have really slammed the film as being like disempowering, as not empowering, people with Asperger's and autism. And, Sia was very defensive when the trailer was released and criticized. And look, I understand you put your heart into something and then people are slamming it before they've seen it. And I think she sort of backed away from some of that and started to understand why what she was doing was so problematic. But it's let's be honest, it's one of the worst films I've ever seen. And I don't say that lightly. And it's out now in the UK. I don't recommend people checking it out. But if you watch that film and then watch Peanut Butter Falcon, what you see in Peanut Butter Falcon is directors who really wanted to tell the story of a character who happens to have Down syndrome, but also wanted to tell the story of someone who wanted to be a wrestler, who was scheming, who was, a really interesting character. This, they're really don't develop this character beyond the fact that this character has, autism or, Asperger's. And it's, I don't know. I mean, what do you think about this sort of?
Yeah, well, I think, it kind of comes down to similar stuff of what we're saying about Minari, and that, it's having characters that are of, that aren't the main represented demographic, and how are they then represented? And, with Minari, we're saying that actually it's a film about an American family who just happen to be Korean. And I think that's, that's got to be really important here, that, yes, Peanut Butter Falcon is a story about a guy who wants to be a wrestler. Oh, and he has Down syndrome as well. I think when we start to make those kind of things the afterthought, it's the same with I May Destroy You. The story isn't necessarily about a Black woman who is a victim of sexual assault. It's I think it kind of came more from the angle of, there is a woman who is a victim of sexual assault and she's also Black. She just happens to be Black. And I think we're starting to see that now progression of diversity and representation, that it is improving in the way that what originally was different about people or not normal about people is like, well, no, that word normal doesn't matter. It doesn't apply here, because this person they are Black, they have Down syndrome, they are East Asian, but we don't need to focus on that, because guess what? Their day isn't made up of them going, me as a mixed race guy, I don't wake up and go, oh, right, well, I'm going to be mixed race today. I wake up and I go, I'm going to be Elliot today. So, and I think that's really important. So to hear about music and I think, because I saw your thoughts on the film on Facebook before sitting down to watch it. So I was like, and look, my only option to watch
it.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Well, this is it, because I saw your thoughts, because my only option to watch it at the moment was to buy it for a tenner.
Yeah.
And I was like, for £10. I was like, after seeing your thoughts, I was like, look, I'm not going to buy it for £10. I'm going to, I'll wait and catch up with it at a later time, just to, so I can understand where you're coming from. So, and I'm kind of really hoping now, and especially with some of the things that we're watching, that hopefully we're going to shift into that mode of, this is a story about a person, they just so happen to be X. And so I hope, and I think, Peanut Butter Falcon is definitely a leader in that. I think Minari is definitely a leader in that. I think I May Destroy You is definitely a leader in that. And look, they don't sit there and they don't negate these things, because at the same time, as much as we want these things to not be the focal point of the story, they are things that are still that this person still is. I think the best way I can sort of make that clearer is by saying, when someone comes along and goes, oh, I'm colorblind, I don't see race, and it's like, that's fine, great, but the thing is that that side of me, that's also part of who I am. So please don't not see it. Just see it for its positives and don't buy into the stereotypes about it. So,
Yeah.
and make sure that you tell your friends and your family that as well. So,
Yeah.
and I think that for me, that goes across the board when it comes to gender and sexuality and disabilities as well.
Yeah, and I think too. I think again, the thing about Peanut Butter Falcon, but also Run, for example, is that the conflict in that, of course, it's much, as it always is in these thrillers, it's darker and more disturbing than just this. But it's the parent doesn't want the kid going to college. Well, that or is scared that this kid doesn't want the kid to leave her because she's growing up and she's going to go to college, and that's frightening for the parent. Well, that's universal, I think, like just in general. You don't have to be someone who uses a wheelchair, or you don't have to have a kid who uses a wheelchair, just or who's in a wheelchair just to like be scared that your kid's going to go to college. Like that's a very universal theme, and of course, it's much darker and depraved than that in the film. But like those are universal things that I think aren't specific to people who have disabilities, and I think also I did not. Apparently, they re-edited music at the call of organizations that work work with people who have autism, and sort of. But the movie does show, and again, as someone who works with kids on the spectrum, like I don't know where this research was coming from. Like restraints used when this character music is having a meltdown, which is like I don't know what research was being done there, but like. Yeah,
Well, it sounds like next to none.
Next to none. And we have a comment here.
From my lovely girlfriend Jeannie,
yes.
who's watching. She says, I guess we still need to acknowledge the lived experience, and I think that's totally true. That's what we're saying here. That as much as we want to up the representation, we still need to, it's finding that balance of they're still a person, but there is, there's this, there is something about them that we can also talk about. So,
one thing I did want to ask you though about this that I think is interesting, because I wanted your take on this, because I, as a young actor, would often get called in earlier in my career for characters who had autism, have Asperger's. And so we sort of said when we were working with kids, we said, everyone to some degree is on the spectrum. Because I think that, this sort of philosophy is coming through more now. But there was a certain point where it started to be seen where, this cast director came to me, who I really like, but she's like, maybe this could be like an in for you in the industry, playing these characters. And I would go out for a few of them. And then it started to be where the breakdown started to be, we want people not just with learning disabilities, but people who are actually have Asperger's and autism to go out for these roles. And I was like, look, I told the cast director, like, look, I can't do this. Like, I can't authentically, like, this is not what they're asking for. But also, like, I would like these actors to have a chance to play these roles as well as other roles, obviously. But I do think in recent years we've seen characters played by able-bodied actors who've displayed sort of certain qualities, maybe of being on the spectrum without being explicitly diagnosed. And so I'm thinking Denzel Washington and Roman J. Israel Esquire, which is a really fantastic performance. But Washington said he based it off of his friend who had Asperger's. And Mr. Robot, the girl with the dragon tattoo, Lisbeth Salander in the book is sort of diagnosed with Asperger's. Will Graham on Hannibal. So how do you feel about this in terms of like these characters showing sort of traits of this, but without actually sort of being diagnosed? Like, do you think we should continue to see like someone who does not have Asperger's playing, Lisbeth Salander, iterations?
I guess it comes down to, I think all the opportunities need to be given to actors who maybe are diagnosed on the spectrum, certainly so. But at the same time, how many of them are necessarily going to be comfortable doing it? I don't have any experience with working with people who are diagnosed on the spectrum, so I don't know if there's a certain aspect of how comfortable they are to work in that environment. Obviously the environment can be changed to help them and bring comfort to them in that way. So I guess it's just kind of finding that balance. And if you can't find anyone for that role, and let's bear in mind, when I say you can't find anyone, this is after actually looking and actually auditioning people for that role, then maybe, you still need to get, is it still a question of, right, well, we still need to get the representation out there and still, make space to normalize these people, to normalize people in society. So do we find then an actor who maybe isn't diagnosed with this and but can still portray that and make sure that we get that representation out there? So I guess that's my position. I kind of fall in that middle bit. I kind of say that, yes, we should make sure that we give all the opportunities to these actors. But if we have genuinely looked and genuinely auditioned them and we still don't think it can work, then is it then more important that we just get that representation out there? Because, there's possibly at a point where studios have already, or production companies have already backed a lot of money into it. And so, you can't then just pull out and say, right, we're not doing this because we can't find an actor for us that that works and is comfortable and they want to do this, that is diagnosed onto the spectrum. So I think we're somewhere in the middle. But and it also then comes down to, actually, if we do keep getting these films out there and increasing that representation, well, then maybe actors will become more comfortable and then they can come out and portray these roles in a more authentic manner. So well,
yeah, no, I agree. And I also think, this is, I guess, the last thing I'll say about this, because I don't want to keep I don't want to keep everyone too long.
No.
We have that Delroy Lindo thing, right? Or I guess.
Oh, mate, don't worry. That's don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I mean, I'd love to catch it, but don't worry about it.
No, I think, look, I heard in an interview, there's a really fine film called Good Time, made by two very excellent filmmakers, the Safdie brothers. But they have a character played by one of the Safdies who has Asperger's, is autistic, and the reason they gave for casting, the reason he gave for casting himself, I think it's Benny Safdie, who plays the character, is that they felt that it would be exploitative if they had someone with autism in that role.
Right.
And I would say I get it. At the same time, you're likely going to be hiring an actor. You're not going to be hiring someone off the street. You're going to be hiring an actor, and they've likely read the script. And if they're auditioning for it, obviously this is not always the case. They're likely comfortable with doing that on screen and know that what it is fiction. And have likely been trained. And while I think that's an understandable instinct, that instinct can also be kind of condescending to actors with disabilities, because I mean, they're actors at the end of the day. It's the same as like doing a scene where you cry, or where you have to run, or you have to do something, eat on screen or whatever. Like, these people have training that they can go to, and
exactly.
I just don't know. One quick thing, my friend Dasha wanted me to point out that there's a show called Stumptown, which joins the long list of shows I have not seen, because I have not seen The Sopranos. Wait, Elliot, this isn't live, right? Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
people have seen that.
We're
people
live.
know I have never watched The Sopranos. Darn.
I've never watched The Sopranos, so there's two of us on here that's never watched
okay. I never watched Breaking Bad either.
Okay, now it's getting weird, man. Come on.
Shit. No, I think there's apparently, Dasha told me, there's a character on Stumptown who has Down syndrome, played by an actor who has Down syndrome. And of course, here in the States, it's on ABC. Not seen Stumptown. I love Portland, Oregon. It's a great city. But that is great. And I think, props to them for doing that. And I think I look forward to, as soon as I make it through Sopranos and Breaking Bad, to seeing Stumptown. But
nice.
But yeah, no.
Brilliant. All right, well, let's move back on then to the playlist for your weekend watch list and our next film, which Josh, you brought to us, and it is Saint Maud.
Saint Maud, which is a British, I guess you describe it horror? Yeah, horror film.
Yeah, I guess, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and came out last year in cinemas around sort of the time where we were sort of you were just getting out of lockdown. And it sort of debuted in 2019 at Sundance. I think this is a really sort of major, remarkable film, and
Mm,
it's a debut, I believe, a debut film. I believe that the director's name is Rose Glass, um,
yes.
and um, low budget indie. And the exciting thing for me was walking into this film expecting something along the lines of Babadook or Conjuring, sort of a more sort of quiet horror film, and then getting something like Taxi Driver or First Reformed. Um,
Yeah.
and seeing that through a female character as well, which is usually these
Mm,
films are like angry men, like Joker, like a lot of these films, and I think this is an astonishing debut for Rose Glass. I think horror has been a very good genre for like representation, especially when it comes to like female representation in film in terms of both in front of and
yeah.
behind the camera. Um, and I think this is, there's hardly any men in the film as well. There's,
Mm,
um, and it's really great to see, like, I think this kind of relationship and the dynamics of this relationship explored through like a female lens and a female point of view. And also to see a film that's shot just like in Yorkshire, um,
yeah.
just in a small city sort of in Yorkshire on the coast. Um, but yeah, I mean, I know there's a variety of opinions on this film. I loved it. Um, what did you think?
Yeah, I really loved its kind of simplicity because it allowed then for that ethereal stuff, that religious, that demonic stuff to kind of stand out a lot more when it needed to. It was kind of what was nice is that it was about the relationships rather than about the supernatural. The supernatural was just sort of a byproduct of everything else that was happening in this story. And I just thought that the lead, Morphy Clark, I thought she was just fantastic. She was
Incredible.
just she perfectly pitched that hella creepy. Everything is happening inside here. Everything was behind the eyes, and that kind of that's what draws you in. It's what that creepiness kind of through what she was doing. You're like, I was there just like, okay, I'm kind of not sure what's happening, and I want to know what is going on, but you're making me want to find out, and that's kind of how I sat through the whole film. Yeah, it was very, and I actually also what really stood out was just a lot of the sound design as well. I
Yes.
thought that was the way it played with sound. I just again it kind of it was another way of bringing you into the space instead of it being here in front of you. Suddenly it was already behind you, and for a horror film to get that feeling that there's something already behind you, I think that's when it's kind of it's been perfectly pitched.
Yeah, and I think yeah, I love the sound design. I think that's a really astute, like that definitely stood out to me while I was watching it. And I think
Mm,
too, what I really loved about the film is that we we the relationship that you see, well, there are a few things, but the relationship you see on screen, I feel like um it's such a specific one in terms of the caregiver and the person who's dying, and yet we've never sort of
yeah,
seen it sort of explored just kind of like that,
no,
um in that way. And also just the fact that there's this dynamic that the uh, um the character played by Jennifer Eel, who's also great. And you're right, Morford Clark it's astonishing. And actually, I don't know if you're if your only return is of the king and not the Jedi, or is of the Jedi and not the king, but you know what she's doing next?
I do not.
Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings series.
Oh, right. Oh, beautiful.
I'm excited to see her take on that
Yeah.
character, especially after
Yeah.
seeing
I can
this.
see her. Yeah, I can see her as Galadriel straight
Yeah,
away after watching this.
yeah, no, it's like
Oh, that would be very exciting then, yeah.
yeah, she's gonna smash that role. But like, I think seeing that sort of relationship play out, and also the fact that the Jennifer Ehle character is queer in the film, and the dynamics that adds to the film, it's just really exciting. And
Yeah.
I too loved the other thing I really loved too. I loved the way she shoots the town at night, or the city at night.
Mm.
You know, uh, uh, when you see sort of when you see Maud's character sort of roaming the town at night, it reminded me of De Niro in Taxi Driver. Um,
Right.
but I really like too that this film has the sort of courage to be as ambiguous as it is. I think you can read
Mhm.
this film either as someone unraveling, um,
Yeah.
or you could read it as she really is having this religious experience. And
Yeah.
um, I think that is very rare. I think in cinema, I think I really like Hereditary a lot, but I will say one
Mm.
of the things that sort of always I wish wasn't the case about that film was that it very explicitly lays out at the end what exactly is going on. And of course, if you
Yeah.
rewatch Hereditary, it becomes more interesting seeing the sort of strings being pulled. But I love that, like, the ending of the film does not explicitly say whether this is a case of someone unraveling or this is an actual like religious
Yeah. Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, and you're right, because the film places the nuggets throughout of that it could be either or as well. And so even if the film finishes with that ambiguous idea, actually it's just ambiguous the whole way through, because there are things that she sees that aren't actually happening, or there are things that she experiences that we then later find out actually wasn't authentic from other people as well. So yeah, I think that's yeah, it was certainly a very different kind of film, and I'm glad that it's been brought into this space, because we need stories that are just going to do something completely balmy every once in a while, and I think this is definitely one of those films.
Yeah, for sure. And it's great to see like a unique voice on screen, like and
Yeah,
it just came out in the US, so it's I think it's on Epics now. um,
right.
do what I did, go in Amazon, get the free trial, and then cancel your subscription to Epics. But it's on Epics, and it's also, I think it's on pretty much every platform in the UK, right?
I watched it. I found it on Amazon, but
Yes.
I had to. I had to either rent or buy, and the price difference in the end, I just bought it. So I've got it indefinitely now, which is good, because I'd actually like to go back to it again
Yep.
and just, now that I kind of, as we said, not that anything gets resolved, but now that I know sort of how it moves through, I can sort of watch it back, and I can, you can then kind of pick out and decide, was that real? Was that authentic? Or is it just, yeah, as you say, is she just having this complete
She
episode
like, yeah,
that, yeah, yeah,
having a breakdown. And
yeah,
also credit to I saw this on Wikipedia. Um, I looking this up just to make sure I have this correct, but
mm,
Morfred Clark actually does. I mean, she has. We were talking about sort of neurodiversity earlier. She
yeah,
herself is. She has ADHD. She had dyslexia as well, and
right.
again, that form of representation being seen on screen there in
Mhm.
a character that is not, is not. There's no specificity if that she
Yeah,
has
yeah,
ADHD,
yeah,
or not playing someone with ADHD or dyslexia, and so I think that's also really great to see. Yeah, she's an
yeah.
amazing actress, and really incredible debut debut film.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Lovely. Brilliant. Okay, so we just have the last film now for your weekend watch list playlist. And this is coming from me. And this is, again, something similar in regards to I May Destroy You. It's something that has been out for a while, but I've only just been able to catch up on it. And I'm so happy that I finally caught up on it. And it is Rocket Man, the
You're not gonna sing
biopic
it?
of Elton John. Rocket Man. No, I want to keep the viewers in that we've got, not scare them off.
Jeannie would like that. She'd like
she probably won't, because since watching this film, I've been blasting Elton John around the house. I already had one of his greatest hits vinyls, and so yesterday I was cooking dinner and I had that blasting on in the other room, loud enough so that I could still hear it in the kitchen, which was great. But I mean, I already love Elton John and his music anyway, and so I kind of don't know why it took me so long to watch this film, but we kind of decided on the weekend to sit down, myself, Jeannie, and my sister. And yeah, I mean, I think all of us, well, my sister was a bit unsure at the start, but she kind of got into it more as the film went. But Jeannie and I were just absolutely taken straight away. And I thought this film it's, you kind of always sit there with biopics, don't you? And you kind of wonder, how much of this is true? How much of this, actually happened in that way, and so on and so forth. And I think to see that Elton John, that his name's down as an exec producer, and that, I think we saw for the marketing, he was sort of leading a lot of the marketing for the film with Taron Egerton. So I think for me, it's kind of like, I feel there's an authenticity to it that is quite startling, and you kind of don't realize really everything. I didn't really realize everything that Elton John actually went through. And so to watch this film, and I think, again, if we're going to talk about diversity and representation as well, and in particular in the way that we're talking about it, the guy, very unfortunately, had issues, and that stemmed from his childhood, from his father, not being there and not being a figure in his life, and even his mother as well. And then to see how that later affected his relationships going forward, and how he can still sort of create the music that he created, perform the performances that he did, and then come out the other end and still make incredible music. It just blew me away, really did.
Yeah, I mean, I saw this in cinemas when it came out, and we have in the US digital, like this, like sort of like a deluxe sort of Dolby Cinema at one of the sort of chains of theaters. So it's like a really extended picture quality, and also like great sort of like sound and like all around you. And like I was very skeptical because I hated Bohemian Rhapsody, and musical biopics, it's like it's the same rise, and then you have a fall, and then you have a rise again, and it's just like, and I go into this film, and it's a full-blown musical, and you want to talk about great cinema going experiences. Seeing that at the Dolby Cinema, when they get to Saturday Night Is All Right for Fighting, and that's a full-blown proper musical scene. You've been singing that. It took me a lot of restraint not to go and dance to that in the cinema.
Yeah.
Get up and dance. And I think it was a brilliant sort of way of like getting around just the fact that we're telling a biopic. They turn it into a proper musical with like, and in many ways it's sort of a fantasy in a lot of ways. It's I love that about the film.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and I mean, you even look at the Rocket Man sequence in itself as well. Just as you say, we talk about this sort of fantasy setting, and it kind of starts itself off in such a low point for Elton John, and then they I kind of sit there and go, right, did he write this when he was at that place in his mind? Because the lyrics certainly suggest that is the case. But then the fact that we have this just incredible silhouetted choreography happening with the hospital and the paramedics, you're just like, you're not just showing us his life and his music, you're taking us to a new realm with it as well. And I thought that was really, really impressive.
Yeah, I thought that was really Great. Yeah, that sequence is really awesome in the film, and the performance too. Like Taron Egerton's very good in the film.
Blew it away, didn't he?
Yeah, he's great.
I mean, if we talk about actors, completely transforming for a role, I think that one's up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Also, oh God, Stephen Graham. We have to mention him because we went to the same drama school.
Yes.
Alumnus of Rose Bruford. I love his scene in that movie. He is so much fun to watch. In the film, like he's such a blast to watch. I love. For a while after it, I would do an imitation of him in my British accent, just because it was so much fun. So yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he does absolutely steal. Particularly that first scene he walks in is just fantastic. Yeah, no, it's great. And then also, I think the way that it displays the love and romance of Elton John as well, in a way that we're very used to in heteronormative films. That it was very nice to see that it was like, yeah, look, this Elton John was gay, and so we're going to show that he was gay. I say is, and they don't, and it's really nice that they don't shy away of that. Particularly, we see there's a slight discourse at the moment around It's a Sin and Bridgerton, because here in the UK, there a journalist in her reviews for Bridgerton described the sex scenes as hot and steamy, and then describes the sex scenes in It's a Sin as graphic and over the top. And you're like, well, hang on a second. What's the difference? What's the difference here? Oh, one's hetero and one isn't, and one's gay. And it's like, well, come on, we can't be splitting hairs here. If one is graphic, then the other is, or if one is sexy and steamy, the other is. It's and so it's nice that and I think what's even more important is that when you have such an icon as Elton John, and you're willing to do that in the film as well, to just be like, look, this is how he loved, and this is how we're going to display it. Like, all the more to you.
Yeah, and it's especially on the back of Bohemian Rhapsody, which unfortunately straight washes for Freddie Mercury. I think then seeing a film that does not straight wash Elton John, that is authentic to his story. So I was trying to find the quote that I love from Stephen Graham in the film, but I can't. But buy yourself some new clothes, something flashy. Let them know who you are. Put on a grand fucking show.
Yes, and boy did he.
And boy did he. But
boy did he.
Yeah, great film.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, I think we can just about wrap up there. Before we do, let's just go back over the films and TV shows to add to your weekend watch list. So we started off with Minari by Lee Isaac Chung, featuring Stephen Ewan, featuring Yuri Yen, featuring Alan Kim, Noel Chul, and Yu Jung Ewan. Josh, in America and the US, where can guys catch Minari?
So, if you want to see Minari, but you think you can go to a film theater, a cinema, I'm not advocating unless you're in private to do that. I wouldn't. But it is playing. There are still screenings left on the virtual cinema platform through A24, screeningroom.a24. And if you have a local art house, you can buy your tickets through that art house, and some of the proceeds will go to like Film Forum or various other places. So it's always good to keep independent cinemas afloat, especially during these tough times. So that's where you can find it outside of cinemas.
Lovely. And here in the UK, it is currently scheduled for release on the 19th of March. So obviously that is scheduled to go into cinemas. We're obviously dependent on the pandemic at the moment. If there is any news and its release in the UK onto streaming, follow me at Hakuna MaChatter on Twitter. I'll make sure to spread the joy there. Next, we had I May Destroy You, written and created by Michaela Cole, starring her in the lead of Arabella. And if you've not watched this yet, you want to watch it in the UK, you can catch that on BBC iPlayer. It's all up there. All 12 episodes are there for you to watch. Josh, in the US, where can people catch I May Destroy You?
Find it at two places. You can either go to HBO Max if you have an HBO Max account, which and my friend who's account I'm currently using, I use to watch that, and he's watching this live stream. Thank you. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, you can go to HBO Max, or you can get it. I believe it's also on Amazon if you subscribe to the HBO package. You can get it there. They also have on HBO Max resources for people who sort of like want to like learn more about the topics being discussed. You can find out more through that. And actually, the season is available to buy on Amazon. You don't need an HBO
Brilliant.
Max thing. So, yeah.
Great. Next, we had the Peanut Butter Falcon, which is just a fantastic film. If you've not seen that yet, here in the UK, it is available on Netflix.
Oh, wow. Great.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix. I am looking up where it is available right now. So, okay, here we go. Sorry. I was going to have you like say something interesting, Elliot. Bail me out.
Something interesting, Elliot. Got it.
Elliot, something interesting. Go. No. It is available on Amazon Prime. Oh, a lot of places. Amazon Prime, Hulu. Also, if you have DirecTV and Epix, it is available as well. So a lot of different places, and you can also buy it on Amazon. Definitely, if you missed it in cinemas last year, see it. It's Zach Gottsigan. It's a real star-making performance, I think.
Yes, easily. And then we had Sound of Metal as well. Currently not available in the UK. Its release, I believe, is scheduled for next month. Again, pandemic depending.
Yep.
It is currently available in the US on Amazon Prime, though, correct?
It is. It's on Amazon Prime. It's also in some cinemas. Riz Ahmed, really great. Paul Raci. If you're an Oscar voter, please consider Paul Raci for Best Supporting Actor. He is a Chicago legend as well, theater legend in Chicago, local theater legend, and really incredible performance.
Brilliant. Then we had Run as well. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, it's available on Hulu, I believe, is the only place it's currently available right now. It was originally supposed to get released by, I think, Lionsgate, and then it was supposed to come out Mother's Day. But, obviously with the pandemic, it's now it was pushed to streaming, and it is available on Hulu. I think it's a Hulu original film now. But yeah, if you're in America, it's on Hulu. Is it in the UK at all available or no?
Right now, I've just looked up on Digital Spy. It says, unfortunately, Run, but this article was November 2020. It says, unfortunately, Run doesn't yet have a new release date in the UK. It's unclear whether it will remain as a cinema release or whether it will get a streaming premiere like it has done in the US. So I can't quite see. Here we go. So it will be in the UK April 15th on Sky Comedy and Now TV. There we are.
Sky Comedy.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
That doesn't sound right for that, right? No, that's a series. That's a different. I think that that's.
I know what you're talking. Yes, I know what you're talking about because I originally tagged it.
That kind of makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Then I think it's currently the release is unscheduled. Currently in the UK for the film Run, not the TV show. And then we have Saint Maud. Where can we find that in the US, Josh?
So you can find that on either if you have Epix, it's available on that streaming platform channel. I don't know. I don't have Epix. I did do the Epix free trial on Amazon, which is also where it's available. I'm assuming that it sort of has like some kind of contractual runs on these sort of like channels, and that it will be available later on more platforms. I don't want to promote this, but apparently the whole film's available on YouTube. But I don't do that. Pay for the film. I'm part of the A24 Facebook group on YouTube or on Facebook, and apparently someone posted the link to it. But no, and I'm assuming available everywhere in the UK, right?
I found it to rent or buy on Amazon Prime, so that would be my place to go. I searched Netflix and Now TV, but I couldn't find it there. Maybe someone else will have better luck. But otherwise, Amazon Prime here in the UK. And then finally, Rocket Man,
Rocket
which here in the
Man.
UK, Rocket Man, which can be found on Now TV here in the UK.
Awesome. And look something up on internet. This is
I mean, to be honest, you could probably you can buy it now anyway.
Yeah, you can buy it.
Yeah,
buy it on Amazon. It is available on Hulu.
Yeah.
If you have a Hulu subscription, it is available there. And if you want to feel good over this weekend, you should definitely see it because it is a crowd-pleasing film.
It really is.
And please don't watch music by Sia. Download Sia's albums. Download Sia's albums on iTunes. Watch those. But yeah, I think that about does it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Brilliant. Well, it's been great having you on. Thank you very much for coming on and talking in your knowledge and expertise on what you have.
Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a real treat for me, and I love this channel. I love what you do on this, and it's just like I said. It's like two friends it's like us at the pub in drama school talking movies.
Yeah,
we're just recreating that for live audience. I know everyone. Your audience wants to see that. They just want to see us at the pub talking.
They do. We'll make sure to bring beers next time.
Yeah, I only had coffee and it's not spiked, unfortunately. When we talk about Fast and Furious, we'll have beers. And yes, we will be talking about Fast and Furious.
Oh, yes. I can't wait for that chat. That's going to be great.
It'll be amazing.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining here this evening on Hakuna MaChatter's Your Weekend Watchlist. If you're watching on playback, please do let me know your thoughts on any of the films or shows we spoke about today, or any thoughts you had on our discussion on the representation of people with disabilities in film and TV. I'd love to know your thoughts. So do just let us know in the comment section down below. Your Weekend Watchlist will be back in 2 weeks' time, and I'll have a brand new guest then as well to talk more films, more TV shows, more diversity and representation. I look forward to catching you then. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do hit that subscribe button, turn on those bell notifications so that you know when new videos are dropping, when you know new live shows are here, and so you can be involved as part of the conversation on diversity and representation in film and TV. Other than that, thank you very much. Good evening.
Good afternoon.